The first thing I ever read. At 2.5, I'm told I pointed up from the stroller and said, "Exit." It's been a love affair ever since. The signs, the words, the door that leads outside. What the pen said. Take me up. I will fly your heart like a kite. Chalk cliffs at dawn, sun at noon, twice round the moon at midnight. The sky calls out to climb the nearest chair with arms outstretched. Cry to be enfolded as your ragged tail flutters behind. A consolation prize for wanting to embrace heaven and be embraced. Held back by desire from a string and straining forward. You will fight the cord, tear brilliantly into streamers and applause. When time snaps its jaws on your neck, you'll smile to know the sky waits for its admirer. You've sent so many love letters, its mailbox overflows, drifts down the flagstone walk to kiss the door's threshold. And this one's actually from my book, this prose poem called Universal. This starts with a joke. Two cosmic accidents walk into a bar. One turns to the other and says, "How did we get here?" The other says, "Fucked if I know, the beer's cheaper next door." And so I will say I am one accident and you are another. I will admit the great empty absorbs every act of creation as if it never occurred. I will admit that the beer is indeed cheaper next door, but flat and bitter. Love is a dangerous thing under the best of circumstances, and when it arises sans proper motive or attire, it makes people reach for blunt objects to kill it quickly. When the bards sing of love, they are generally only talking to their strings. Its enormity escapes us, broken down into this one, that one. And so I will say, you are one instance and I am another. I will admit sheer terror and futility before its scale. I will admit that logic falters and speech betrays. I will see the instance of you before me and wish myself larger, capable of better prisons. I will admit you are as much mystery as any beginning. This ends with a joke. The two of us walk into a bar. I turn to you and say, "Why are we here?" And you say, "Fucked if I know. Ontology was never my forte. Have a beer." I will tell a joke. I will watch the great empty swallow laughter whole even as it leaves our throats. I will stand my round. 20 questions. Is it bigger than a bread box? Deeper than a well? More real than the skin you stand in? Does it make your breath catch like a fish hook in your throat? Does it collect names to itself, 1,000 pins vainly describing the cushion their slim bodies pierce with silver? Does it bless you and curse you, a hydra slashed into multitudes, each mouth independent, tender, fanged, and startling? Would its departure change you more than watching your house burn to the ground with all your books? Would it come to you in fever dreams, shake your aching shoulder from sleep to ask for a glass of water? Would it bring you the ocean in a sieve? Would you bring it the ocean in a sieve woven of your own torn hair in response? Have you created a gallery of crayon studies trying to do justice to the hinted grin that puts Michelangelo to shame with its uncertainty? Have you realized the only time you captured the light and dark of it entirely was when you caught yourself wearing it? Have you considered coating your skin with stain and thinking of it with your face pressed into linen, but stopped, afraid the water stains would leave nothing but a cheap shroud for gullible tourists? Can you count the times it touched you in birthmarks and nicks on your fingers? Can you count the times it catapulted you into air and walked away? Can you climb into its arms without questioning intent? Is it love or enlightened narcissism? Is it art or a failure to grasp hands? Is it God or a three-card Monty? Does it matter? Will you pull that smile for me, once again finding Earth at the end of gravity's rainbow? Will you shoot me through with silver pins, answer with one name and one name only? This is a two-poem section about perspective. The poem you will write about me when you've gone. You were as mean as the day was long, Yankee Flint down to the bone, all crooked eyebrows and fall leaves rustling. I drank golden Midwest cornfields every night, and there was nothing of that about you. You never let me rest, always pushing at my business, talking about duty like it was yours to hand out, like punishment for my moments of weakness. Maybe I needed a few lazy days to sleep too late without answering to anyone. Maybe a week in my pajamas and a bottle of whiskey could have solved this. Maybe I took my time about leaving, but it was my time to take. I hope being right is enough for you. Hold your satisfaction against you like a blanket all winter. Let it warm you on cold nights, a parting gift. Maybe you'll thaw. Hell yes, I'm bitter. You linger on the back of my tongue like overbrewed tea in a cracked cup. You said you wouldn't take sides, and look how long that lasted. I'm leaving to face my fortune without you palm reading over my shoulder. My slate's blank as asphalt under the tires. I'm gaining distance, a little perspective. I never owed you a damn thing. I won't call, don't expect it. But those days when the ring leads into the echo of a dial tone, that'll be me. The reply I will inevitably write. You read too much into everything, and I can't become more complicated just to suit you. I'm an eyewitness to the train wreck. You scream stop, whether or not it will do any good. I gave you the 7 o'clock news. The editorial, that's all yours. This is from a manuscript of second-person poems called You. This one is Polaris, now Cygnus. Under quartz bulbs and bastard amber, the brittle undercoating of their skin hides beneath the luminous silk of evening gowns, the white flash of costume jewelry. They parade in open-necked, starched tuxedo shirts, strategically dressed rags on loan from Les Mis, slinky mesh innuendos that cling to display every contour they will let you touch, but not inhabit. The Swan Song Cabaret is stocked daily with every intoxicant known to mankind, starting with the choice of entertainers. Like their namesake swans, they glide with ineffable composure over floorboards on display. Tourists will point and stare at the marvel before them, although they are just birds, behaving as birds do. Like swans, someone will try and make one a living lawn ornament and regret it when bit. They hiss and snatch at whatever crumbs are thrown from the audience, their necks snaking toward the apron. They stumble when the spotlight shudders out of their element. They are defensive of territory and obsessive groomers. Like swans, they spend their lives composing a secret song about being mute. The master of ceremonies is telling jokes, not really jokes, between numbers as the piano player smokes a quick cigarette before the headline act and calls his therapist for an emergency appointment. The stage manager is having a clandestine affair with a chorus boy. The usher and the janitor have desperate sex on the fly floor, trying to prove to themselves that no partner will ever lived up to the enshrined mythology of their first. The cigarette girl loves the dancing bear, who does not know and will take a contract in Kenosha that separates them forever. The cigarette girl loves the dancing bear because it has the softest skin she has ever known, but the bear would always believe she only loved the dancing. It's best for both of them, but when she takes up with the valet, she won't sleep with him until he buys her fur. The headliner shakes off her dressing room stare and cruises to her mark, resplendent in white sequins, feather boa, coal dark eyes. She croons into the microphone like the paramour she would never trust with this much intimacy. She wraps the cord around her arm, a helicopter rescue line from hell, lost in the reflection of watchers until it is unsure if she is Narcissus or Echo. They are a work in progress, the audience and the torch song chanteuse recreating each other with each olegato phrasing. The audience feels the theater fall from underneath their feet, the thunder cloud hanging above her head like the world's most melancholy Zeppelin becomes part of the set dressing. There is a contralto undertone, a Billie Holiday charade where the last note dies so slowly you can barely stand to listen to the fade. It's a standard, but the song remains sad every time it's sung. Its decrescendo always falls for one night and one night only. Beyond the conditioned response of applause, there is only so much you can offer without transgression. Water, cold cream, kindness. You stand in the alley holding a picture of an open door in the air and hope the intention transmits clearly as a point of entry, not an exit. You show pictures of the desert sky in Arizona, the night you saw more stars than your eyes could encompass altogether. You present this moment of peace at an abandoned rest stop as if you could hand it to them, because you would. You put your hand to their cheek and whisper, "Beloved," because they are. You tell them they are precious even in the mute hush of the seedy alleyway behind the cabaret. They don't believe you. You tell the dancing bear it would be precious even if it were an accountant, and it moves to Kenosha. People reinterpret every night sky for themselves, gathering any light shed into new constellations. What was once Polaris is now Cygnus, the pole taken to flight, leaving an uncertain north. The dipper may pour itself out and tilt, spent from the sky to land in the ocean. Arizona may open you among saguaros and prickly pear with the full moon as your spotlight. You may reach for its reflection years later from a bridge, or try to clothe the mute song of your life in the air between your lips and your lover's right ear. Coffee. The first time we kissed, you brought your lips to my ear, told me I tasted like coffee. I asked what you'd expected of a poet. You said you didn't know, something wordier with explicit imagery, an allusion to Laurel's origins, the descriptive thrill of loss when we break open our seals to compose scrolls that will come to be known as holy. More bittersweet, less spit. More teeth and tongue, less eye contact. Would you have taken me walking at twilight in May if the dictionary abandoned me? If my smaller self, this junk drawer of minor vices looking to roost, had said nothing but the truth? I love you. You taste like leaving. You want to kiss a poet, and I punched out hours ago. Listening to the ocean. The year we were mermaids, everything tasted of salt water. We slid like dulse along the shoreline. Sand scoured our skins, soft escape. We were raw, liquid, tidal. Friction ceased to exist. She was as open as an oyster, nacreous, shimmering, slick. She was a pearl beyond price, and everything was free. Men wrecked themselves on rocks every time we sang. Banjo variations. 1. Of all the misunderstood, despised instruments of the world, it's the loneliest noisemaker of the pack. It lingers after symphonies, asking after the string section of the orchestra. The conductor won't meet its gaze, claiming its invitation lost through postal misadventure. Its pager never interrupts its lunch hour. It hates its management. It's not bitter, really, just wistful. A touch lonely for all the amphitheaters whose acoustics it will never know. 2. If only, thinks the banjo. If only I hadn't let them stick me in this tiny niche of straw boaters, swamps, and hillside stills, I could have been a sound to contend with, cutting through all these over-mannered measures. I could have carried weight with my loud voice, spit wire at all the highfalutin snobs until they understood raw enthusiasm has power, for all that it knows nothing of locrian mode and runs like water through the sieve of a staff. Schools were poor where I came from. No one ever thought to teach me ritzy tricks. No one ever thought I'd need them at my station. It was a different time then. Things seemed simpler. When we gathered then, no one searched our pockets for weapons at the door or feared abandoned cars. We were neighbors, or at least less afraid of each other. Even the newspaper gave up black and white for gray, so hard to read without the contrast. Things are different now. 3. The stadium fills, rehearsing a Viking funeral for Western civilization over a sea of lighters held arm's length, no one's fingers intertwined, flickering over extortionately priced black cotton printed with skeletal or demon totems, cities, dates, marketing slogans, sweating as if they could carry the live moment on their backs until the dye bled it through to their skin. The crowd aches to be informed of how fucked up life is, how nasty, brutish, and short we will be with one another, of their potter's glaze crazing run through, cracking in the kiln. Sometimes it just feels better to revel in low expectations, fragile with not so far to fall, in love with death and mayhem turned cartoon, electric vaudeville, trying to skip 4 stages in search of acceptance. Sometimes it's enough to make you bark in line at the bank, the weight of all those suspicious store manager eyes every day, following you through produce as you buy grapes, already constructing a plan for apprehension, seeing your face as a monochrome mugshot. The banjo takes ticket stubs at the stadium entrance, trying to make enough to pay this month's belated rent. It wonders what it would sound like played with feedback. 4. Gadfly comments accrue in massive archives, lampooning the bass player's instruction pamphlet, mocking lead singer's notorious vanity and drummer's australopithecine proclivities. The instruments themselves remain unscathed. Maybe the bagpipe or the accordion has an inkling of its distress. They were never meant to be quiet or polite. The harpsichord shares its dissonant melancholy. The 12-string, its constant need for attention. The 20s blues guitar with its own key unique in all the world becomes treasured playing Delta slide. Not so for banjos. Chainsaws and violence abound when the musically sarcastic cut loose, even though it scores certain slasher films with a jangling undertone that begs for lenience. See, it says, I am trying the best that I can to be helpful. 5. The banjo hangs unplayed on the walls of upscale restaurants, trying too hard to be rustic or quaint, pinioned by the rusted bicycles and outmoded washboards, disdain clinging to its warping fingerboard. Not even performance artists want to touch it. Everything it stands for comes from porches sagging into dirt, from something so simple we no longer understand it. Our hands are soft and spotless. Our newspapers are gray. Our neighbors are mugshots. The world sounds like a Viking funeral, a requiem of mayhem, strangers pillaging the shore. Empty your pockets, hands in the air where we can see them. No one is touching. The banjo is too lively to score this. Even 12-bar blues can't purge it. We are waiting for silence. 6. There are secret admirers, too shy or ashamed to bring it out in public, afraid to lose face in the company of cellists. Mostly they claim to own one for the company or research. At festivals, a faithful few risk association for a night of dancing in practical boots or white shirts with suspenders, stepping out through smudged newsprint, crushing the worlds into our kitchens until we are all too heavy with its misgivings to kick up our heels. 7. In the end, even I can't listen for long. The banjo's so buried by its stereotype in history, the fact of its belly seems almost insubstantial, a solid figment straining to be seen through expectations. Too much a symbol of roots we pretend to sever from our enlightened, college-educated selves, a simpler exuberance without the call to double-check faces against the gray of the newspaper. It feels dangerous to ask personal questions these days. I wish I knew more about the banjo. I wish I knew you. I wish I knew where to start. 7. We dance too little in our rush to criticize the tune. The world is not yet settled in its casket, the newspapers running epitaph unfinished. If you take my stiff legs out to two-step, forgive me when I step awkward on your toes. I'm new at this. No one ever taught me simple steps. No one ever thought I'd need them at my station. It's a different time. I'd like to spend some of it dancing, and maybe I'll buy you a beer and we can exhale. I'll stick my hand out. Grab hold and spin me until I'm dizzy with color, too busy to worry about how easy it is to slip and fracture, enchanted by the simple fact of dancing, all right with an instrument, always slightly out of tune. I'm just checking time.
You're fine.
Oh, okay. If the function of a lighthouse is to call a warning into fog, of mermaids to sing sailors under, of sea to give room for steering, of stars to spin over crow nest, of moon to sketch sharp-lined cheekbones, how strange anyone lands safely. In prairie night, a beacon winks, solitary bonfire on the plain. If the function of its burning is to warm a pair of hands, of smoke to build skyward ladders, of stars to puncture void, of moon to chalkstroke velvet curtains, no wonder we look on them as sentinel fingertips tilting our chins skyward. Their purpose flings hints of snapped cottonwood to veil night's hollow stare. Sea change took us. Our knickknacks look back, waiting to be told what to be. These objects we trust abandoned. Firm dirt slipped under a salt wind. We haven't moved anywhere, love. The ocean came to our door. Terra incognita. No one flies here for the weekend. There's too much liability. You'll travel on foot if you come at all. You'll come on your own and make your way slowly. The warning of tigers comes first. It's only fair. There are no zoos caging roars in safe boxes. They run where they choose, laze in the sun, napping, content. We leave food out to pacify, but they love to hunt on hot nights. It's best to start with the dangers, difficulties. There's no mail service, no passports, no duty-free shops. You will not be able to keep up on the Red Sox or watch Survivor. The radio is mostly drums and chanting. The lodgings, makeshift, primitive shelters of branch and skin. If you last long enough to settle in, you'll find your way by thickets, outcroppings of rock, clouds shaped like arrows. Beware, the weather is unpredictable. Yesterday, monsoon. Today, desert. Dress accordingly and bring spare shoes in case of quicksand. Orchards of poison apples grow, for each Hesperide is granting immortality. Assume imminent gastric distress. Except for this one, it cures cancer and ennui. Once you cross the border, life becomes complicated. The fauna do not recognize the supremacy of man. The flora smell like sirens, sting like hornets. You sniff the wind for news like any other creature. It's the happiest I've ever been living here. It could end any time, but my lean-to by this reflecting pool suits me. All it lacks are good neighbors. It's not for everyone, not even for most. We discourage tourists, are too aware of peril to openly invite immigration. I came here on my own 2 feet, slowly. Maps had no spaces for where I needed to go, so I left them at the border and pushed on despite warning. If you arrive, I'll show you what's not in the brochure. The temple of wind chimes run by the cliff-dwelling monks. The old woman selling ambrosia takeout from her hut. The valley of peace where that griffin guards its agate eggs. The wine spring. The forever tree. The extra chair. The rough, gorgeous scent of tigers in the evening air as they parade a second sunset under full moon. I'll close with this. This is also from the Concept Philosophy of Trains. Love outside the body. They lay spent, silent but for saw blade breath, opaque to one another as the broken light switch. Her open palm ran his resting length, mapping curves, angles, intersections and longitudes. He pinned her fingers, whispered, "Shh, sleep." "I don't even know your name," she said. "I don't know what shape your face is. I don't know if you're smiling." He presented his shoulder. "There are rules. You've been warned. Be quiet and go back to sleep." She waited for his snore and lit the wick, held the lamp aloft. Her kitchen knife clattered to the tile. Bay windows broke open. He flew away in a cloud of snuffed smoke. She stood on the sill, thinking her sisters in the oracle had been right. He was a monster. Most gods are. Psyche wished she were one herself, that she kept her resolved and severed his golden curled head like a snake. 2. Your hand rested once in the small of my back, and once wrapped my waist by my hip. Your hand found the nape of my neck, and no further. I reached to touch you once, your forearm, asked if you needed help opening those boxes. I do not understand why my tiny lamp implied a blasphemy of grasping. I wanted to know you. I was not using the biblical sense. If I grew wings, flawlessly departed from my body, would you give me leave to see your face? Would you sing with me as I pray my way to daylight? 3. Love drives the faithful into tongues, topples empires, holds the toddler upright, feeds the poor, twists the knife, walks the long road back from death and never looks back, searches arrival gates, puts up tomatoes for winter, leaves the body sucked in, a smashed vacuum. It is the winter gift sweater returned for cash unworn and the miner's pocket of caved-in air, last and most crushing of hopes. The streets are filled with walking tongues, singing this to one another through mufflers, betraying the high notes, stifling the bass. I sang my insides out, trying to understand, told you to take what you wanted, and you wanted me to walk. I did as instructed, went on a pilgrimage. The ocean was beautiful. When I offered my breast as a sacrifice to Venus, it understood. I sat by the pier watching the Ferris wheel spin, searching for a way to leave my body, wash it into words. If I could, I'd switch sexes like an oyster, suitable for all occasions. For love wants nothing more than to be useful. I dreamt a window open with a rush of wings, its messenger intone, look up until you fall over backwards. The storm sky filled with stained glass cracks dispelled its film of clouds to lose unfiltered light. I fell hard on my back in the sand, soaked into skates' eggs and silicone, almost beyond the limitations of sinew and short legs. The messenger was gone when I sat up, heavy as lead with sand in my shorts. My husband helped me up, brushed me off. We rode the Ferris wheel at the pier and ate fried dough. Shame is not part of our creation. He knows more about how I feel about you than you do. He held my hand. We are of use to one another. When did love ever live in a thigh? If that was love's only hinge, it would be split by one thrust. Love is the hand that points out evening stars rise, bright minnows in tide pools. Love finds sea glass in tide's shadow and lays on shoulder. Love walks in sympathy with love when love has broken itself hollow, trying to understand if love is love. 5. When you think of God, do you tremble? Do you think about my breast? Does the ocean threaten your wife? I am trying to be useful, to understand love outside the dark room of the body. I am trying to lift my lamp to the back of your hand. 6. How can we know light when our course forms shudder till we only smell its disappearing smoke? Psyche can search after Eros forever. He was never the point of the story. If sex were the center, she'd have kept groping for his manhood in the dark. Her name means soul. What's locked inside these bodies is the same. Gods and monsters, Psyche, Eros. Hands reaching from a Ferris wheel at sunset by the pier. Thank you, Angela. Thank you for staying.